and welcome to the Sunday Guardian show by Joyeeta Basu. Today I want to discuss the Bangladesh violence and Hasina's ouster. Now the two primary issues I intend to address in this video are number one, who did it, and number two, what next for Bangladesh and India. Now in my view, what we are witnessing is a coup of sorts. Now in these new age coups, military tanks do not roll into the Prime Minister's residence as that is bad optics and will stop the flow of funds and aid from the Western countries that claim to live by democracy and are sensitive to such sites. Now, even though unseen hands from their shores may have been involved in such coups. Now, hence the Bangladesh military, is talking about forming an interim government with the radical Jamaat-e-Islami and Khaleda Zia's BNP. Now, this coup is being applauded by the great United States of America, the upholder of democracy and democratic values in the world, just because it had labeled Hasina a dictator. At the time of recording this, even the UK is not willing to grant this so-called dictator asylum. Now, so Hasina has been demonized and discarded by the Western democracies, even as the forces that Hasina had been able to keep in check for years run riot on the streets of Bangladesh. Was Hasina at fault in all this? Of course she was. Anti-incumbency was building up against her. She could have been restrained in her action against the anti-quota agitation, which continued even after the Supreme Court scrapped the quotas. Too much force was used, too many people died. The students' ranks were infiltrated by the radicals and the jihadis. In fact, the students' movement was completely hijacked by the Chhatra Shibir, which is the students' outfit of the Jamaat-e-Islami. Now, don't forget that the Jamaat, which is a radical extremist group, has a huge hold on the poorer sections of the Bangladesh population because of the charitable work that they do through their religious seminaries. They feed the people and give them a basic madrasa education. In a country like Bangladesh, this is a lot for the poor. But in the process, the Jamaat also radicalizes them. Now, the Jamaat has its roots in the Razakars, who were collaborators with the Pakistan army and were the worst kind of oppressors of the people of the then East Pakistan. Now, the rise of the Jamaat and BNP drastically reduces New Delhi's influence in Dhaka. That the Pakistans are celebrating New Delhi's quote-unquote ouster from Dhaka should give an idea of which way the Jamaat is inclined. Now to the specific question, who played along the fault lines of Bangladeshi society and politics and ensured a regime change? There are two suspects in this. The US, number two, China. Now it is well known that the United States was trying to get Hasina out for a long time for the alleged backsliding of democracy in Bangladesh. It's a different matter that it was turning a blind eye to all of Pakistan's transgressions. Now there is also some talk of Hasina not towing the US line in matters of security and business. She was also being accused of being too close to China. But that's all unproven till now. What's proven is the US ambassador to Dhaka, Peter Diaz, was regularly talking to the Bangladeshi opposition. The Biden administration, in the name of democracy and human rights, was actually fighting for the right of the Razakars to fight elections, without going into history to see how undemocratic and radicalized these forces are. Now, essentially, Biden's Bangladesh policy is a reflection of the influence that Wahhabi elements in the US have on the State Department. Wahhabis who have been lobbying hard to get India blacklisted and sanctioned for so-called human rights violations. It is these same Islamists who want to control Bangladesh now, and the rise of the radical Jamaat strengthens their hands. Now that their rise causes a problem for the US's strategic partner India does not seem to be a concern for Washington, D.C. Well, as long as Biden's values-based foreign policy is served, whatever these illusory values might be. And now we are suddenly hearing a demand from the so-called students that, the Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus should be in charge of the caretaker government or be its supervisor. Now this is straight out of a US script. Hasina went against Yunus, charged him of corruption, and he now lives in the US. It is well known that this Nobel laureate is a front guy of the US. So if he comes to the center of power, then it is obvious that the US, the deep state, whatever you call it, had a huge role to play in Hasina's ouster. Now about China. Now Hasina recently had a very bad visit to China. She announced that she preferred India to China in a Teesta River project near India's border. Now this would have angered Beijing. It has to be seen whether the new rulers to favor India over China, given their aversion for India. If not, India will have a Chinese project coming up right next to its border. In fact, strategically located near the Siliguri Chicken's Neck corridor that connects the northeast to the rest of India. The obvious question is, what role Beijing played in the ouster of Hasina? Amid this, don't forget the role that the ISI, the godfather of the Jamaat, would have played in all this. Now, Pakistani ISI is a smart player. Who did it take the money from to foment these protests? From the US, or from China, or from both? As for India, Hasina's removal will have serious security and strategic implications. It will now have to live with another anti-Indian neighbor, which is going down the path of Islamist extremism. With arson and violence sweeping through Bangladesh, India will have to brace for another wave of refugees fleeing that country. It has to take care of the safety of its own diplomats and its citizens who live there and work there. It's a tough road ahead for us. Now, what we are witnessing is a sheer horror story of murderous mobs roaming the streets of Bangladesh, looting, killing, and spreading mayhem. Now, they are hunting down Awami League leaders and Hindus by calling them India's agents, and they are killing them. I even saw videos of men branded as Indian agents and hung upside down from bridges. India will have to tread carefully through what is now a veritable minefield of forces aligned against it. As for what now? For Bangladesh, the destruction of the statues and memorials of Bangabandhu Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the man who brought Bangladesh independence, is symbolic how regressive and radicalized and morally bankrupt Bangladeshi society has become. I mean, just imagine they are now wiping out memories of the most glorious phase of their history, the birth of their nation, in the name of revolution. What sort of revolution is this? This is pure Islamist movement. As the country sinks into Wahhabi radicalism, it is almost as if Bangladesh is undoing over 50 years of its history. Now, the Bangladesh story of growth and rising GDP is over, at least for the foreseeable future. Thank you for watching. Until the next time.